Say hello to the new Safari. Now we all know the basics. It's based on the Harrier. It has the same wheelbase, but it has been lengthened and it's got 3 rows of seats. It can seat 6 or 7. It's got the same 170 horsepower engine made into an automatic gearbox and a manual gearbox. It gets upsized 18-inch wheels, disc brakes at the rear, hill hold assist, ESP and an electronic parking brake. But the main question to ask here is whether this is worthy of being called a Safari. It's time for the new Safari to meet its parents, the OG Safaris. So let's start with the new Safari. This is the top of the line version, and of course it has to have a huge panoramic sunroof. Now the cabin is unchanged from the Harrier, but it gets this nice white seats and also the two-tone dash and the door pads, which actually looks really good. It gets the boss mode, so one lever over here and you can slide the front seat all the way forward to liberate more space at the back. This is the 7-seater. You also get the 6-seater, which gets captain seats in the middle row, and that makes it really nice and comfortable. And that will be one of the key selling points for this new Safari. How does it drive? Let's find out. First things first, doesn't have that funny aircraft style handbrake lever. It gets a electronic parking brake, and because of that, it also gets hill hold assist. It has ESP, it has 6 airbags, and it gets the tried and tested now 2-liter diesel engine from FCA. You get a manual gearbox, a 6-speed manual gearbox, and you also get a 6-speed automatic that has been bought from Hyundai. Now we've seen that 6-speed automatic in our long-term test Harrier, and I think it's very nice. This actually is the first time that I'm driving this 170 horsepower engine with the manual gearbox. And surprise, it feels really quick, really enthusiastic, and there's a fair bit of torque steer also when you floor it. So you can switch off traction control, so ESP is switched off, you floor it, and there's tons of wheel spin, torque steer. This is an enthusiastic car. You get torque steer on dirt, torque steer on tarmac, plenty of power. 170 horsepower, 168 bhp, 350 newton meters of torque, and of course this is a monocoque, not the body on ladder frame that the Safari always was. So the big difference, you see the first corner, you turn it into the corner and the dynamics are a million times better. This stays nearly flat. Of course, there is body roll, but when you compare it with the old Safaris, the body roll is almost negligible. The Harrier, in my opinion, is one of the nicest driving SUVs in that segment, in the mid-size segment. And this actually, the Safari, it takes it one step better. How? It's because of those 18-inch rims. And of course, this is a little heavier than the Harrier, so they must have tweaked the spring and damper ratings. It now rides even better than the Harrier. It is even more planted, even more stable, even more impervious to whatever the road surface is. No matter how bad the roads get, the Safari, it doesn't have to slow down. It just swallows it all up. And I think that is the key linkage to the Safaris of the past, because if you remember in the past, the Safari had phenomenal ride stability. You just flattened everything in your path. With this new Safari, you can do the same. This new Safari is quick, no doubt about it. Quick, enthusiastic, gets a good turn of speed. The engine is also refined. Of course, when you're flat-footing it, you can hear the engine, but otherwise, the rest of the time, it is silent, it's refined. It goes around corners quite well. It's really sorted. Tata Motors calls it the Omega architecture, which has been derived from quote unquote the legendary Land Rover platform. Land Rover themselves don't call that D8 platform legendary, and in fact now there's a new version of the platform in the Discovery Sport and the Evoque. This is the D8 derived from the D8. The big difference being at the rear, the Safari and the Harrier, they get non-independent suspension, so torsion beam suspension, whereas the Land Rovers all have independent suspension. And the reason why Land Rovers have independent rear suspension is because the Land Rovers have four-wheel drive. The Harrier and this new Safari sticks with front-wheel drive. Tata Motors, they say that this platform is capable. There is also a transmission tunnel, so when you sit in the middle row, you do see the transmission tunnel. So they say that if required, they can engineer four-wheel drive for this platform. But as things stand, there is no four-wheel drive for this platform. So the Safari, it remains resolutely two-wheel drive, just like the Harrier. Does that disappoint you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what you think. We will of course be asking Safari owners and enthusiasts what they think. To me, I always thought the Safari, it fit with that whole four-wheel drive lifestyle. You can take your car out on the road when it gets off-road, when there is nothing in your path, you just stick it into follow and you trundle along. That was always the image that I had in my mind of the Safari. But fact of the matter is, not too many people bought four-wheel drive cars, and that's why Tata Motors haven't bothered to spend the kind of engineering budget that it requires to put four-wheel drive into the Harrier. And of course, the Safari. To put four-wheel drive into the Safari. And of course, our buyer is going to spend a lakh and a half more for four-wheel drive. Experience says no. Duster, the all-wheel drive, they stopped it. Renault stopped it because not too many opted for the all-wheel drive. The same with the Scorpio, which gets all-wheel drive. The next version, will it get all-wheel drive? Who knows? So that is the market. I have a very soft corner for the Safari. Back in 2000, when I actually started off in automotive journalism, we came up with this idea of 4x4 travelogues. It was the first series of travel stories in any car or bike magazine, and the Safari was our first vehicle that we took. So we took two Safaris to the Run of Kutch. That was end 2000, and that story really did put me on the map. And since then, we did a lot of travel stories. Later on, we took the Safari to Ladakh. It was the first road tripping story to Ladakh that any car magazine had done. And I did really a lot of kilometers on those safaris. In fact, I always wanted a long-term test Safari, but it never happened. Now I have a long-term test Harrier, but I never got a long-term test Safari. And that was really my dream. Maybe I didn't visualize it enough. That's why it didn't come up. To be driving an old Safari brings back tons of memories. Now, this is not the one that I really started off with. The very first one, which had the 2-liter diesel engine, that Peugeot-derived 2-liter diesel, we really did try, but we really couldn't find one of those. I don't think those really lasted 2 decades of hard use, or at least not too many did. This is the first update that the Safari had. This is the 3-liter DICOR. It was launched around 2005. This particular model was bought brand new by Umair in 2008, and it has done 192,000 kilometers. He hasn't opened up the engine, no major mechanical work on the car. He says regular servicing, and that's about it. This has been running since then, 14 years, nearly 2 lakh kilometers, and it doesn't feel like it's falling apart. So this impression that we all have that Safaris never really lasted, I don't think it is based that much in fact. It's probably a perception that we had, because this one is still chugging along. Umair still uses this as his daily driver. He does 150 kilometers every day. That's his commute. He drives it from Pune to Hyderabad almost every second week, and he has no problems with it. So what does this car feel like? Well, 14 years, cars do become loose. The steering, well, there is a ton of play. So it is almost like a land yacht. You point it in the general direction that you want it to go. It's not too bad, but considering modern steering systems and considering the new Safari steering, which is actually very quick and direct, this is something that you really need to get used to. The second is body roll. There is generous amounts of body roll. Even gentle corners, it leans on its outside tires. It is a relaxed, easy way to drive. This is not something that you really would want to push. But cars like this, the Safari especially, and especially back in the day, they were brilliant for doing cross-country miles. To drive from Pune to Ladakh and back to Pune, there was nothing better than the Safari back in the day. I'm talking nearly 2 decades ago. And even now, the ride quality is phenomenal. Remember, the new Safari's ride quality is astonishing. It is very, very good. But this one, it takes the cake. It is soft, so it doesn't really have the dynamic polish. But the way it goes down these typical Indian highways, it's brilliant. It's so comfortable. And the driving position, man, the driving position is next level. The visibility that you have, so the belt line is very low. It's sort of like what Range Rover calls their throne-like seating position. So you sit high up, the steering is low, and the view up front is magnificent. I don't think with modern crash safety and all of that, you will ever get a view like this. But it's phenomenal. This view is unbelievable, to be honest. This engine, back when it was launched, oh how we criticized it. This engine is actually taken from the 407, which is not a pickup. It's actually the light commercial vehicle, the LCV. They picked that, plunked it in the Safari, and the power band, it's 1500 RPM. That's it. So third gear, 1200 RPM, foot on the throttle, and it pulls. There is absolutely no turbo lag, nothing that you can feel. And it pulls 2000, 25, 28, 3000. And after that, it's just waste of revs, because after 3000, it goes to 3300, but 3000 you shift. So that's the power band, 1500 to 3000 RPM. But the engine is also very torquey and very effortless. So on regular Indian highways, you stick it in 5th gear and there is enough grunt to chug along. And it does chug along at a decent pace. So even by today's standards, with modern vehicles, it can keep up with fast moving traffic. You just have to keep in mind that the steering, it doesn't really have much precision. So, yeah, and it's still going in a straight line. So you have to give it a little bit more in terms of the steering input. The suspension is soft, so it does feel a little boaty like. There are squeaks, like for instance, you get off the, there is a lot of body roll. And Tata Motors never made great gearboxes, so it's a real hit and miss kind of affair with this gearbox. You point it in the general direction of third and it might go there. You need practice. It is a bit hilarious to be driving this. But it's also pretty cool. But when you think about it, that this was actually launched 20 years ago, and then you can really imagine what a tour de force the Safari was. It was not the first lifestyle SUV. I think that credit goes to the Sierra, but this was a proper 4x4 go anywhere vehicle. A hugely desirable SUV back in the day, and a proper SUV. In 2008, Tata Motors, I think it was Telco back then, I'm not too sure. It used to be Telco, but so whatever, Tata Motors or Telco, they updated the Safari with the 2.2 litre DICOR engine. Now this was completely different from the 3 litre, nothing in common. It made 140 bhp, 320 Newton meters of torque, and the big difference was in terms of refinement. It is so much smoother, so much quieter than the 3 litre DICOR. I don't have to shout to make myself be heard. It has got more of a power band, and it feels quicker. It feels more like a passenger vehicle engine rather than a commercial engine. Umair will get upset when I say that, but honestly, this feels like a more modern motor. There is more torque, it has more get up and go, and it is more effortless. Of course, you do now feel the turbo lag. There is a fair amount of it. The 3 litre DICOR was effortless at 80, 100 kilometers per hour. This is effortless at 100, 120, even 140. And I know because we did quite a few drives with this and we really liked the elimination of that 3-liter DICOR. Now this DICOR, it was bought in 2008 when the DICOR was just launched. It has done 132,000 kilometers, and even this has not needed any major work. Engine has not been touched, nothing really has been done to the suspension. So these things, if you take care of it, they do last. And these guys, they are active Safari members. So they're members of the Soul Club. They go out every second weekend on drives. On Republic Day, which is when the new Safari was launched, they were out on a drive with 30, 35 Safaris. There was one Harrier, and that Harrier owner was told that next time say, please Matana, if you have a new Safari, you can come. But the Soul drives, at least in Pune, is only for Safari owners. So it's like a click. But these guys are enthusiastic about their SUVs, enthusiastic about taking care of it. Now, in terms of the suspension, nothing really changed. They made some detailed refinements to the rear suspension of it. It feels less floaty, less bouncy, but that incredible ride quality, it still remains. It still is very stable no matter what the road condition. The steering, again, it's not precise. There is a lot of play. Look at this. There's a lot of play, but once you get used to it, you can cover distance fairly quickly and effortlessly. The Safari Storme was the last of the true blue Safaris, the body on ladder frame. Now, while on the outside this might look like just a facelift, this actually was thoroughly revised. So the chassis, while continuing with the body on ladder frame, it actually borrowed a lot from the then new Harrier. So it was much tighter in terms of the body control and in terms of the dynamics. The engine, it was updated. It was still a 2.2, but it got the VGT turbo. So that made 400 Newton meters of torque and 156 bhp. So the most powerful Safari, and actually the most powerful Safari yet, because the new Safari, it's 350 Newton meters. This VARICOR 400, the 400 actually stood for 400 Newton meters of torque. It got a 6-speed manual, of course, no automatics back in the day, and the interiors were completely and thoroughly updated. So while the general layout remained the same, the quality, the fit finish, the equipment, all of that took a significant step up, and it moved. It moved enthusiastically. So this VARICOR 400, it accelerates with vigor. It's not much slower than this new Safari, to be honest. The ride quality, it remained spectacular, flattens everything in its path. And like I said, that's the strong link in terms of the lineage between the new Safari and all the old Safaris. They thunder over any kind of road. You don't have to slow down for anything at all. Space at the back, excellent. Right at the back, jump seats. So not comfortable for kids, sort of okay, but not safe also. So I wouldn't recommend putting anybody out there. And the gearbox, the VARICOR 400, I think 3 years ago, we took it to the Run of Kutch, did a drive with the Soul members. That's the Safari Owners Group, which has now become, I think, SUV United Owners League or something of that sort. But Soul was actually for Safari owners back in the day. We took, I think, 6 Safari owners to the Run of Kutch. That time we had a 4-wheel drive Safari, and it was fantastic across the Run of Kutch to cover fast distances across the country, to explore the unknown. The Safari, it really did enable all of it. It was rare that you'd find a Safari stuck. Okay, it was not the best 4-wheel drive. For instance, you cannot compare this to a Thar in terms of its off-road ability. But medium off-road, like what you would find in Ladakh, what you would find in the Run of Kutch, maybe going down a beach, one of the beaches which is open to vehicles, this could do it all. But of course, truth of the matter is that not too many Safaris were bought with 4-wheel drive. In this lot, this VARICOR 400 is the only 4-wheel drive Safari. The rest are rear-wheel drive. So all of us howling that the new Safari does not have 4-wheel drive, well, the Tata Motors marketing guys are actually on the money, because in the past, when they did have 4-wheel drive on the Harrier, on the Hexa, and of course on the Safari, very few people actually bought it with 4-wheel drive. Very few people spent that lakh and 20 premium over the regular rear wheel drive. So we howl about it. Guys on the internet and on social media howl about it. But fact is, when people go down to put their money, not too many did spend on a 4-wheel drive Safari. So this new 2-wheel drive Safari is fine. To be honest, I'll miss this Safari experience. The new Safari, it's an excellent SUV. Let's not mince words about it. The ride quality is phenomenal, the handling is good, the engines are good, the interiors are nice, everything is sorted. But what the Safari actually offers, this visibility, this throne-like driving position, this option of 4-wheel drive, it's not there anymore. I'll miss it. Will buyers miss it? I don't think so, to be very honest. I think the new Safari will definitely sell much more than the old Safari ever did. But that's what I think. What do owners of the Safari think about the new Safari? We'll put them in the new Safari and then we'll ask them their thoughts on A, the new Safari, and B, whether the new Safari is worthy of the Safari badge, if they will ever upgrade to the new Safari.
See, I've been using it since almost now is the 14th year. Previous gen, or the Storm, or the 2.2 DICOR, or the 3 litre. It's a good vehicle, doesn't have the commanding position. What it misses on is the rear wheel drive, and the all wheel drive, which should have been there, because being a front wheel drive, it makes a lot of difference. Whereas the positive points is damn comfortable, very much planted on road while driving, and I've achieved high speeds on it, considerable high speeds, which were very good as compared to these ones. It is much capable at speeds. Still, I would say in off-road capabilities, it would lack a bit as compared to the previous gen Safaris. That it's very planted. This wasn't, the previous one wasn't, it wasn't at all.
Definitely there is a smoothness in the ride. The comfort is also different than this one. I think there are too many features they have given it. So yes, definitely that's the one for the road, the new Century, I think 2021 onwards. So I think I love that, I really love that. I think the difference is definitely the muscular look. But otherwise, I think the Tata has maintained a lot of things in that new Safari as well. So I think it should go, the people should love it.
What do I think of the new Safari? Well, like the Harrier, this new Safari also is really good to drive. In its segment, it is the nicest. The Harrier was the nicest. The Safari, it takes it that slight bit better. I think mainly because of the wheels, but it feels more planted and it's nicer to drive. The interiors, it feels slightly better than the Harrier. So in all respects, the Safari is actually my pick in the segment. But is it a proper Safari? Well, I will say it doesn't have 4-wheel drive, so no, it's not a proper Safari. But Safari enthusiasts, they don't seem to mind, because we got 3 of them to drive it and all 3 loved it. All 3 said when they eventually retire their current Safaris, they would buy this Safari. So the Tata marketing guys, they're probably on the money with this new Safari. What we think doesn't really matter all that much. It's what buyers think. And if buyers flock to the Safari, well, Tata Motors is having its cake and eating it too. Subscribe to the Evo India channel and hit the bell icon to keep pace with the thrill of driving.